Hello, YouTube. I recently watched a video called "If You Are an Atheist, Don't Look at This Video or Not, It's Your Choice." And I figured I'd do a response. So let's see what this has to say.
My name's Jennifer Fulweiler. I was a lifelong atheist and I'm now a Christian. I write a blog called Conversion Diary. It's a chronicle of the ups and downs of what it's like to have faith after an entire life of being an atheist. I never believed in God, not even as a child. When my dad would come read books to me at night, I believe I was in 4th or 5th grade, and our nightly reading was Carl Sagan's Cosmos.
Okay, wow. I wish I was read those books as a kid.
So I was very much raised on a diet of science and reason and evidence-based rational thought. You believe what you can prove. I believe that I have hands because I can see them. I believe in a black hole, even though I've never seen one, but science can tell us about the way matter moves around it that we can observe.
Okay, great. Given your predisposition to science and rationality, I'm eager to hear how you can rationally or scientifically defend your Christianity.
And so this very rational worldview always made sense to me on a fundamental level. Before I got to the start researching faith with an open mind.
Whoa. Before you go any further, I just want to clarify that having an open mind doesn't mean that you'll accept anything that makes you feel good. It just means that you're welcome to new ideas and are willing to consider them. That shouldn't supersede your rational screening process. I agree that your mind should be open, but not so wide that your brain falls out.
Something had to happen. And for me, that occurred after my first child was born. I looked down and thought, what is this baby? And I thought, well, from a pure atheist materialist perspective, he is a collection of randomly evolved chemical reactions.
Why does that bother you? Do you feel that that would somehow diminish your love for your child? I mean, I'm an atheist, and I find that I'm just as loving and kind towards my friends and family. I don't see why you would need a sky daddy to validate your affection. Why do you feel you need approval to love?
And I realized if that's true, that all the love that I feel for him, that it's all nothing more than chemical reactions in our brains. And I looked down at him and I realized that's not true. It's not the truth.
You realized that that wasn't true. So because you loved your child, reason and logic go out the window? It seems like this decision was based more on your emotions than any reasonable or rational thought.
I didn't know from there, but that's what prompted me to start researching topics of spirituality. I got my books about Buddhism and, and about every religion except for Christianity, basically. I assumed that anything could be true except for Christianity.
Why? Why go to everything but Christianity? Christianity is just as crazy as any other religion. Besides, it's not like you have to pick a religion in order to be spiritual. I agree with Richard Dawkins on this one that religion has sort of hijacked the word spiritual. Many scientists and atheists claim to have spiritual experiences when looking at the universe and pondering its vastness and beauty and things like that, which I think is actually a lot more elegant than a pick-and-choose game of religions. Not to mention that religion usually totes with it some very close-minded books.
And my husband, who considered himself a non-practicing Christian, said you might want to start with the one major world religion whose founder claimed to be God.
Okay, I get he was your husband and all, but just because it's the one with the guy who said he was God doesn't grant it any more credence than any other religion. This is an argument based on a translation of a retelling of some people who met a guy who claimed to be God. If you're raised in such a rational environment, you should understand that anecdotes are not reliable evidence, especially if they've been passed down over a long period of time. It's like a game of telephone that started 2,000 years ago.
After all, that's a really easy claim to disprove if it's not. Well, that's a fair point.
No, it's not. How in the world could we possibly disprove that a man who supposedly lived 2,000 years ago was the Son of God?
I was such a through and through atheist that I have to admit I was ignorant of all these great Christian thinkers. What about Thomas Aquinas? What about Augustine? What about Descartes? I mean, all of these great thinkers throughout history were not only theists, but Christians.
Okay, what about them? You can't just appeal to authority to determine your beliefs. You should really try to think for yourself instead of saying, "Oh, look at this guy, he was really smart and he's a Christian," and following suit. I'm not an atheist because there were great atheist thinkers like Epicurus and Thomas Jefferson and Sam Harris and so on and so forth. I'm an atheist because I've listened to both sides of the argument, looked at the evidence, or lack thereof, and thought about what I truly believe to be more likely. I don't base my beliefs on who believes them, or because I like the idea. Isaac Newton was a brilliant mathematician, but he also believed he could predict the future using numbers found in the Bible. I don't blindly follow in Newton's footsteps because he was a great mathematician. I accept some of his ideas because they have stood the test of time and scrutiny, and reject those which have not.
And I was really surprised when I actually found these very intellectually rigorous books.
Again, there were definitely some great minds who were Christian, and I guarantee that for every intellectually rigorous book by a Christian thinker, there are a dozen for other religions, and probably a dozen more for no religion at all. Being religious does not make you an idiot, but there is a negative correlation with religiousness and intelligence. Of course there are outliers.
Where people talked about their faith from a place of reason and not a emotion. And when I looked at evidence like that...
Okay, reasoning and evidence are not the same thing. Reasoning is an argument. Evidence is something which can be demonstrated. Reasoning can be made for just about any religion, but religions have no evidence to back their claims other than their holy books, which is why religion is so unscientific. Imagine if forensic science was based on reasoning and arguments. Such a system would not likely convict the correct person, especially if that person were a good debater. And I'm not saying that to belittle reason in any way. Asking questions is almost always a good thing, but your beliefs should rest on things which can be observed. Otherwise, you could likely be misleading yourself and have no way of knowing it.
On the whole, I started to think something explosive, something world-changing happened in first century Palestine. You have this guy named Jesus who comes from a lower class region, gains a bunch of lower class followers, and ends up being executed by the Romans.
Anecdotes.
And yet in droves, you see thousands and thousands of Jews giving up these traditions that they had held dear thousands of years. And the people who joined in on this new religion, there was no benefit for them. It was a persecuted religion. People who joined this religion didn't tend to work out too well. They tended to lose social status and often face death.
Okay, what about all the other religious persecution by Christians after that? I mean, the Holocaust was a systematic genocide of mainly Jews. Judaism was definitely not popular in that time and place. And yet, many of them maintained their faith. Why not become a Jew?
But I wasn't yet, convinced and ready to become a Christian.
Neither am I.
And so I started a blog. I just threw out every hard question I could think of. I just put it all out there on the blog. And as I would watch the atheists and the Christians go back and forth and debate, I realized we atheists, we don't have the lock on reason that I thought we did.
Maybe you shouldn't base that off some random atheists you saw online. Maybe you should go watch some debates between, Christopher Hitchens and some other Christian apologists, and then decide. Don't base the rationality of atheism on some people you heard or read about online.
But what I saw with the Christians was they had that too. They had all the knowledge of science and material world that we atheists did.
As someone who's experienced a lot of ignorance among religious people, somehow I doubt that.
But yet they had the total picture of the human experience, of love and triumph and hope. And
am I missing something? Atheists are just as capable of feeling all of those things.
They could articulate that in a way that the atheists couldn't.
Then maybe you should start listening to some more articulate atheists.
It wasn't until after I had made the intellectual decision to become a Christian that I think I finally believed it in my heart. When I set my pride aside and...
Pride? I don't know about you, but for me, this has nothing to do with pride. It's not like I'm too proud to open up to God. In fact, I have several times before I became an atheist. I just never got the confirmation that I was looking for. I never got the, hey look, I'm here and I exist from God, which he could have so easily provided me.
Said, okay, I feel like I'm talking to myself, but Jesus, I want a relationship with you. I want to know you, even though I don't know how to go about doing that. This peace entered my life, this joy, the way my whole being was transformed. There was just no question that this is somebody real.
I'm glad you can find some comfort in your beliefs, but you should know that this has no bearing in the mind of a skeptic. I don't believe in things because they are more comfortable or because they make me feel good. I believe in things because they can be observed or supported by evidence. Saying it makes me feel good, therefore it must be true, is just plain ridiculous.
I think that not only am I more alive now that I'm a Christian, but I'm so much more intellectually alive. Finally, nothing is off limits. I can ask questions about science, but I can also ask questions about the spiritual world, and I'm free to really seek the truth.
I can just as easily ask those questions, but I'm probably less likely to accept what other people tell me because I don't have the same experiences as them, and probably have a higher standard of evidence than them. Also, there are a lot of contradictory models which claim to answer these questions, like tens of thousands of mutually exclusive religions which all want me to believe in them, and more still which have faded out over the years. In this situation, I just feel the most rational course of action is to reject all of them and conclude that religion is a man-made construct. I hope you enjoyed this video, and the original video is in the description. Please leave a comment, like, or sub. Stay skeptical, my friends.